40 years of untouchable power didn't just crumble. It was systematically executed on live TV by 12 words that Nancy Pelosi never saw coming. Nancy Pelosi's 40-year political reign didn't end quietly. It was completely dismantled on live television by exactly 12 words from Tulsi Gabbard. Nancy Pelosi was still smirking when Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard leaned into her microphone and said 12 words that collapsed. A 40-year political career, Madam Speaker, you are under subpoena. Please stop deceiving the American people. Chairman John Moolenaar froze at the dais. Ranking Member Raja Krishnamurthy, Pelosi's own Democrat, her own endorsement, her own ally of 9 years, did not lift his head from his legal pad. Senator Josh Hawley closed his binder very slowly, the way a man closes a book when he already knows how it ends. 3 rows behind the witness table, an 1-year-old woman from Fresno, California named Erica Kios folded her hands in her lap and waited for the moment she had waited 5 years to see. If the nation had been waiting for the day somebody finally looked Nancy Pelosi in the eye under oath and said those words out loud, that moment had finally arrived on C-SPAN Live in the United States Capitol, and nobody in that room was ready for what came next. Cannon Caucus Room 390 was not supposed to be where this happened. The House Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party, chaired by Republican Congressman John Moolenaar of Michigan, with Democrat Raja Krishnamurthy of Illinois as ranking member, had been quietly building a case for 18 months. The case was not about politics. The case was about money. Specifically, the case was about a single set of call options. On November 22, 2022, Paul Pelosi, the 9-year-old husband of then-Speaker Nancy Pelosi, purchased between $1 and $5 million in NVIDIA call options through a brokerage account in San Francisco. 11 days earlier, his wife had presided over the final House vote on the CHIPS and Science Act. The bill directed $52 billion in federal subsidies to American semiconductor manufacturers and their primary technology customers, including NVIDIA. Within 7 weeks, those call options had appreciated approximately 170%. The Pelosi family's estimated profit $4 million. In February 2026, the committee issued a subpoena. Nancy Pelosi had 3 choices. She could refuse the subpoena and face contempt of Congress. She could appear and plead the 5th, or she could walk into Canon 390, raise her right hand, place it on a book of her choosing, and answer every question under oath. She chose the 3rd option because Nancy Pelosi had never lost a televised confrontation in 40 years of American politics, and she did not believe she was going to lose this one. She walked into the caucus room as the morning session commenced. She wore white, the color she always wore for moments she intended to win. She smiled at every photographer in the room. When Chairman Moolenaar gave the hearing to order, Nancy Pelosi made the mistake that ended her. Chairman Moolenaar's voice was flat. He was not a dramatic man. Nobody in Michigan had ever accused him of being one. Madam Speaker, you are recognized for a 5-minute opening statement. Nancy Pelosi placed her hands on the witness table. She did not look at her notes. She rarely did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, though I note for the record that I question the legitimacy of this committee's authority to compel my testimony on matters relating to my husband's private investment decisions, which I have no knowledge of and no control over. As I have stated many times over many years, this hearing is not a fact-finding exercise. It is political theater orchestrated by a Republican majority that has spent 2 years failing to govern and has now resorted to harassing an 85-year-old woman in the final months of her service to the American people. I have served in this Congress for 40 years. I have passed the Affordable Care Act, I have impeached Donald Trump twice on legitimate constitutional grounds. I have raised $1.25 billion for the Democratic Party to defend American democracy from the very people who now sit on this committee and claim to be protecting it. I will not be lectured today by a Republican Party that has abandoned every principle it ever claimed to hold. I will not be lectured by a chairman. She turned her eyes to Molinar, who did not react, who has remained silent while his own president conducts one of the most corrupt administrations in American history. And I will certainly not be lectured by the person sitting to my right. She turned her head slowly toward Tulsi Gabbard. Director Gabbard, you left the Democratic Party because you could not win a primary. You met with Bashar al-Assad in Damascus in 2017. You defended Edward Snowden from the floor of the United States House of Representatives. You were called a Russian asset by the 2016 Democratic nominee for President of the United States of America, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and she was not wrong. You are a pretty face for Vladimir Putin, Director Gabbard. You are a pretty face for Tucker Carlson. You are a pretty face for every man in this country who wants a female combat veteran to rubber stamp his paranoid fantasies about his own government. You are not here today to defend the American people. You are here to help a Republican committee attack an 8-5 RDI, retiring congresswoman whose husband made investment decisions that, I remind you, are entirely legal under United States law. Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time. I look forward to your questions. I do not expect them to be fair. Chairman Molinar tapped his gavel once. Lightly, the witness's remarks are noted. On the Democratic side of the dais, Krishnamurthy did not applaud. He did not nod. He did not look at Pelosi at all. He was still writing on his legal pad. Representative Seth Magaziner of Rhode Island, a Democrat, looked at the table. Representative Haley Stevens of Michigan, a Democrat, looked at the ceiling. On the Republican side, Representative Young Kim of California, Korean American, a member of the committee for 3 years, quietly set down her pen and folded her hands. Representative Neil Dunn of Florida, a retired combat surgeon, a veteran, leaned forward very slightly for the first time in the morning. Senator Josh Hawley, sitting in the invited witness row, clicked his pen off. He did not pick it back up. Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan, Democrat, former CIA officer, former Pentagon official, sitting 2 chairs to Hawley's left, tightened her grip on the edge of the table under her binder, where the C-SPAN cameras could not see her. Knuckles turned white. Tulsi Gabbard did not react. She did not look at Nancy Pelosi. She looked down at the small leather-bound book she had brought with her to the witness table. It was not a Bible. It was a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, the book she had been sworn in on in the Oval Office by Attorney General Pam Bondi on February 12, 2025. She placed her hand on it briefly. Then she leaned into her microphone. Chairman Molinar, Director Gabbard, you are recognized for a 5-minute opening statement. Tulsi Gabbard did not place her hands on the table the way Pelosi had. She placed them in her lap, the way a combat veteran does when she is not yet sure where to put them in a room where nobody has been targeted in combat. Her voice was the voice of a lieutenant colonel, addressing troops at a memorial, low, steady, unhurried. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Krishnamurthy, members of the committee, thank you for the privilege of appearing before you today. Before I begin my prepared, I did not leave the Democratic Party because I could not win a primary. I won 4 primaries in the state of Hawaii as a Democrat between 2012 and 2018. I resigned from the Democratic National Committee in February of 2016 because I believed the primary process had been rigged against Senator Bernard Sanders, and the subsequent WikiLeaks releases of John Podesta's emails proved that I was correct. I did meet with Bashar al-Assad in January of 2017. I have never hidden that trip. I took it because I had served with the Hawaii Army National Guard Medical Company in Balad, Iraq, from 2004 to 2005. I had watched young Americans suffer critical wounds on medical tables in a war that a majority of the members of this Congress had authorized without asking what it would cost. I did not want another one. I still don't. I did defend Edward Snowden's disclosures in 2013. I did not defend his decision to flee to the Russian Federation. I defended the American people's right to know that their own government was conducting mass surveillance on them in violation of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. I swore an oath to uphold. Hillary Rodham Clinton did call me a Russian asset in October of 2019. I filed a defamation lawsuit against her in January of 2020. The lawsuit was settled quietly. The way powerful people settle things, the settlement documents are on file at the Superior Court of the State of New York. Any member of the press watching today can pull them tomorrow morning. Madam Speaker, everything you just said about me is a matter of public record. I do not hide from any of it. I do not regret any of it. And I am not going to defend any of it further in this hearing, because this hearing is not about me. With the chairman's permission, I would like to ask for something very simple to be entered into the record. Moulinar, proceed. Director Gabbard. On June 10, 2024, the United States House of Representatives Committee on House Administration's Subcommittee on Oversight publicly released 14 seconds of video footage. The footage was recorded on January 6, 2021. It was recorded by Alexandra Pelosi, the Madam Speaker's daughter, from the back seat of a vehicle as the Madam Speaker was being evacuated from the United States Capitol during the unrest. That footage is public record. It is on the subcommittee's YouTube channel. 51 million Americans have watched it. With the chairman's permission, I would like to play it now. 14 seconds. Because what the Madam Speaker said on January 6, 2021, in her own voice, in her own daughter's vehicle, is relevant to why I am sitting in this chair today. Moulinar, the clerk, will play the video. The 3 screens mounted on the walls of Canon 390, screens that had been installed in 2023 for the committee's DeepSeek investigation, lit up. Nancy Pelosi's voice filled the caucus room. Unmistakable, unfiltered, not voiced over, not edited by anyone other than her own daughter's editing software. The voice of the most powerful woman in the United States. Congress of the last 40 years speaking on her own worst day. They thought that they had sufficient resources. It's not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more. The screens went dark. Nancy Pelosi's face did not move. Her hands tightened on the witness table. She did not interrupt. Tulsi Gabbard continued, still calm. Madam Speaker, those are your words, your voice, your daughter's camera, your car. You said, quote, I take responsibility. Over the last 5 years, Madam Speaker, you have raised approximately $20 million in Democratic Party funds for the operations of the January 6th Select Committee. You have delivered speeches on every major television network in the United States, placing the blame for January 6th on one man, President Donald Trump. The 7 words you said in your own daughter's vehicle that afternoon, you have never said publicly, not on the House floor, not in a press conference, not in any of the 3 books you have published since. 7 words, Madam Speaker. I take responsibility for not preparing for more. I am going to sit here while you say them in this room, under oath, on C-SPAN, in front of the American people who have waited 5 years to hear you say them out loud. The silence in Canon 390 lasted 14 seconds. In a televised congressional hearing, 14 seconds is a very long time. Nancy Pelosi did not say the 7 words. Chairman Molinar quietly let the record reflect that the witness under oath declined the opportunity to publicly acknowledge statements she made on January 6, 2021, that have already been publicly attributed to her through verified footage. We will proceed to questioning. Let that truly sink in. Nancy Pelosi, under oath, on C-SPAN, in the United States Capitol, refused to say 7 words she already said 5 years ago. 7 words her own daughter recorded. 7 words that were already playing on every screen in that hearing room. The sheer weight of that refusal hung heavily in the air, because the woman who spent $20 million blaming Donald Trump for January 6th would not say 7 words that would blame herself. We were only at the first question, and what Tulsi Gabbard was about to pull out next was going to make the first 90 minutes look like a mere warm-up. Chairman Molinar, Director Gabbard, you have 5 minutes in questioning the witness. Please proceed. Tulsi Gabbard did not use 5 minutes. She used 2. Madam Speaker, I want to walk through a timeline. I will not ask you to interpret any of it. I will only ask you to confirm the dates. Each of these dates is on the public record. Every American watching this hearing can verify each one in under 5 minutes on their phone. Date 1 November 8, 2022. You, as Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, presided over the final House vote on the CHIPS and Science Act. The bill directed $52 billion in federal subsidies to American semiconductor manufacturers, including NVIDIA Corporation and its primary technology customers. Is that correct? Pelosi, the CHIPS and Science Act was a bipartisan bill, the full purpose of which was to revitalize American TRT. Gabbard, Madam Speaker, yes or no? Yes. Date 2, November 22, 2022. 2 weeks after the CHIPS Act vote, your husband, Paul Pelosi, purchased between $1 and $5 million in NVIDIA call options, with a strike price of $160 and an expiration date of January 2024. Source: the periodic transaction report filed in your name with the Clerk of the United States House of Representatives on December 16, 2022. Correct? Yes. Date 3, January 3, 2023. NVIDIA Corporation announced the release of its new H800 chip, designed specifically to comply with Biden administration export controls on China, while preserving the company's market share in the People's Republic. The stock closed up approximately 7% that day. I have the closing prices in front of me, correct? I do not follow my husband. S. Madam Speaker, yes or no? I do not recall that specific. I will enter the closing price data into the record. Mr. Chairman, this is harassment. Madam Speaker, it was Molinar this time. Gently, firmly, you are under oath. The director has asked you a factual question. The answer is a matter of public record. The closing price of NVIDIA Corporation stock on January 3, 2023, was it up approximately 7%? Yes or no? Pelosi's voice was smaller. Yes, Tulsi continued. Date 4, January 17, 2023. Your husband's call options purchased on November 22 had appreciated by approximately 170%. Estimated paper profit at that date $4 million. Source: Capital Trades, Com and Quiver Quantitative, both of which track congressional financial disclosures in real time and make their data publicly available. Correct? I do not discuss my husband's investment decisions. Madam Speaker, the disclosures were filed in your name. You signed them. I have a copy of your signature in front of me. Yes or no? Nancy Pelosi looked at her lawyer, seated behind her. Her lawyer did not look back. Yes, Raja Krishnamurthy, the Democratic ranking member, kept writing. Representative Neil Dunn, the combat surgeon, had not moved in 7 minutes. Representative Young Kim of California was smiling very slightly, not out of pleasure, but out of recognition. In the fourth row, seat 9, a man named Darren Hoover, father of Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, who lost his life at Abbey Gate in Kabul on August 26, 2021, was looking at the floor. He was not looking at Nancy Pelosi. He had decided before the hearing that he was not going to let her see his face until the moment mattered. Tulsi was not finished. Madam Speaker, over the last calendar year, according to Quiver Quantitative, the Pelosi household investment portfolio has outperformed the Standard & Poor's 500 by approximately 38%. Your personal net worth, according to the same source, which tracks congressional disclosures in real time, is approximately $262 a million. You have served in the United States Congress since January of 1987. Your combined congressional salary over 39 years, adjusted for inflation, is approximately $5.2 million. Your husband is a private investor and businessman. I did the compound interest math on my flight to Washington this morning. 7% annual return on your $1,987 starting position of approximately $700,000. The position you disclosed when you first took office would yield today approximately $4.1 million. Your reported household net worth is $262 million. The gap between $4 million and $262 million is $258 million. Madam Speaker, the American people are not stupid. They have calculators. They have phones. They have capitaltrades.com and quiverquantitative.com. And on August 9th of 2025, the 47th President of the United States hosted the following on Truth Social, and I am quoting him word for word because the post is still publicly accessible at this very moment. Crooked Nancy Pelosi and her very interesting husband beat every hedge fund in 2024. In other words, these two very average minds beat all of the super geniuses on Wall Street. Thousands of them. It's all inside information. Those are not my words, Madam Speaker. Those are President Trump's. You do not have to agree with his style, but the numbers are real. The dates are real. The filings are real. Question: are you still under oath? Pelosi? This is a disgrace, Mr. Chairman. This is precisely the kind of partisan witch hunt that Moulinar gave once. The witness will compose herself. Director Gabbard, your time has expired. The chair recognizes Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, who has been invited to testify as an expert witness on legislative remedies. Senator Hawley, you have 5 minutes. Josh Hawley was a senator, not a House member. He was not a member of the Select Committee. He had been invited to Canon 390 for this hearing, specifically because of one piece of legislation he had introduced. He leaned into his microphone. He did not use the full 5 minutes. He used 1.5. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am not going to use the full 5 minutes because I think the record so far speaks for itself. In January of 2025, I introduced Senate Bill 270, the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments Act. The acronym is Pelosi. I admit that was intentional. It was also, frankly, the only way to get the press to cover the bill. I should note for the record, however, that 23 of my co-sponsors on that bill are Democrats. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey, and Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, who is sitting to my left in this very room right now. Madam Speaker, with respect, the bill that bears your name is not a Republican bill. It is a bipartisan bill. It is a bipartisan bill because the people of this country, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, have arrived at the same conclusion about your household's financial performance. They have arrived there independently through their own reading of the news, their own review of the filings on their own phones, and their own common sense. My bill is not an attack on you personally, Madam Speaker. It is an effort to ensure that your successor, whoever she is, cannot do what your household has done. I yield back the balance of my time. He clicked his microphone off. Chairman Molinar, the chair recognizes the ranking member, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Krishnamurthy. Every ear in Canon 390 leaned forward by a fraction of an inch. Raja Krishnamurthy was a Democrat. He had been elected to Congress in 2016 from Illinois' 8th congressional district in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. He had been endorsed for ranking member of the Select Committee on the CCP 2 years earlier by the very woman now sitting at the witness table. He had campaigned with her. He had appeared at fundraisers with her. He had been photographed with her at his swearing-in for the current Congress 7 weeks ago. He was her Democrat. He spoke slowly, deliberately. He did not look at her. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief. Madam Speaker, I have served in this Congress since January of 2017. You endorsed me for ranking member of this committee in January of 2023. I have been grateful for that endorsement every single day of my service in this role. I have nothing to say about the facts that Director Gabbard has presented today. The facts speak for themselves. The dates speak for themselves. The numbers speak for themselves. I will say only one thing because it is my responsibility to say it. The people of Illinois' 8th Congressional District, the district I have represented for 9 years, earn a median household income of approximately $92,000 per year. A $262 million household net worth is beyond what they can imagine. It is frankly beyond what most members of the United States Congress can imagine. Whether what your husband did was legal is not the question before this committee today. The question before this committee is whether his trading and yours exposed United States national security to unacceptable risk through the purchase of securities in companies that do significant business with the Chinese Communist Party. I am not going to answer the question of whether what your family did was honorable. The American people will answer that question. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Raja Krishnamurthy had spoken for 1 minute and 17 seconds. He had not defended her. He had not attacked her. He had laid her out on the floor in her own party's voice. Nancy Pelosi turned her head toward him. Krishnamurthy did not turn his toward her. Chairman Molinar. The chair calls the second witness panel, Mrs. Erica Kias. Mrs. Kias, please approach the witness table. Erica Kias stood up from row 4. She was 54 years old. She wore a navy blue dress that she had bought at a Target in Fresno, California, 3 weeks earlier, for this exact morning. She walked the 9 steps from row 4 to the witness table. She took the chair to Tulsi Gabbard's right, the chair that had previously been set for a second Republican witness who had withdrawn 3 days before the hearing. The clerk administered the oath. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? I do. Her hand did not shake. Chairman Molinar, Mrs. Kias, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Erica Kias did not read from notes. She did not have notes. She looked directly at Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi would not meet her eyes. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear today. My name is Erica Kias. For 13 years, I owned a hair salon called E-Salon on Union Street in San Francisco, California. My salon served working women in one of the most expensive cities in the United States. I employed 14 hairstylists. Most of them were Latina immigrants with families. None of us qualified for the first round of the Paycheck Protection Program in 2020. On August 31st, 2020, at 3:08 the afternoon, my salon's security cameras recorded a customer receiving a wash and blow-dry. The customer was not wearing a mask. The customer was Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. San Francisco was at that time under one of the strictest COVID-19 lockdowns anywhere in the United States of America. Hair salons were prohibited from operating indoors. I had been closed for 5 months. My 14 employees had been unemployed for 5 months. I had 2 children. I had a lease I could not pay. 2 days after the Madam Speaker's visit, I gave an interview to the Fox News channel. I said, quote, "It was a slap in the face that she went in, that she feels that she can just go and get her stuff done while no one else can go." End quote. That was the only political statement I have ever made in my life. Within 1 week, the Madam Speaker held a press conference. She said, and these are her words on the public record, "The salon owes me an apology." End quote. She called my business a setup. I received severe threats to my safety. 3 of my stylists quit because their landlords would not rent to them if they stayed. My landlord refused to renew my lease. I lost the business in February of 2021. I sold my home in October of 2021. I moved to Fresno. I have not been back to San Francisco since. I am here today because a member of the Director of National Intelligence's office reached out to me in February and asked if I would testify about what happens to a small business owner when a sitting Speaker of the House publicly blames her for the Speaker's own decision. I said yes, not because I want revenge, not because I want money. I am not going to ask for anything. I just want the American people to know that when Nancy Pelosi stood in front of those cameras and called me a setup, a woman with 14 employees and 2 children, she destroyed the only thing I had ever built. I yield my remaining time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pelosi tried to speak. Mr. Chairman, I object to the relevance of this testimony. Moulinar, Madam Speaker, you are not recognized. The witness has the floor. But, Mr. Chairman, this has nothing to do with. Madam Speaker, you are out of order. The gavel did not fall. He did not need it to. Nancy Pelosi sat down. Erica Kius did not look at her. Erica Kius just told her story in the United States Congress, under oath, face to face with the woman who took her business, her home, and her city from her. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for revenge. She did not ask for Nancy Pelosi's apology. She just wanted the American people to know. Every Erica Kius in this country deserves to be heard, to have their story told without the fear of being silenced. The American public needed to witness this, a politician finally forced to confront the pain they dismissed as fake. The confrontation was inescapable, and Nancy Pelosi was about to lose control, while her own party prepared to do something nobody in this building had seen in 40 years. Chairman Moulinar, Madam Speaker, you are now recognized for a 5-minute response to the testimony you have heard this morning. Nancy Pelosi did not sit for her response. She stood up. This was her gift. 40 years of political stagecraft had taught her that when a moment went wrong, you rose. You rose to your full height. You raised your voice. You turned the room. Mr. Chairman, I have sat in this chair for 97 minutes. I have been insulted by a Republican committee chairman, accused by a Republican senator, slandered by a woman, Erica Kius, whose financial difficulties I will not insult by engaging with further because I take no pleasure in them. What I will say is this. The Director of National Intelligence of the United States of America, the Director of National Intelligence, Mr. Chairman, the most senior intelligence officer in this government, has spent the last 2 hours weaponizing her office to attack a retiring 85-year-old congresswoman on behalf of a president who publicly called her, quote, the most interesting person in politics, a real beauty. That is Donald Trump's own quote about Tulsi Gabbard. July of 2024. Donald Trump, Mr. Chairman, did not put Director Gabbard in her chair because of her qualifications. He put her there because Vladimir Putin signaled through back channels, documented by the intelligence community I used to oversee, that a Gabbard appointment would be, quote, acceptable to the Kremlin. This director sat in a room with Bashar al-Assad in 2017. This director defended Edward Snowden while Snowden was a guest of the Kremlin. This director was publicly identified as a Russian asset by Hillary Rodham Clinton, the 47th Democratic nominee for President of the United States of America. And she is here today to lecture me on loyalty to the American people. Mr. Chairman, this committee has become a laundromat for Russian disinformation. This committee has weaponized my husband's private business decisions to punish me for 40 years of defending American democracy from the very threats Director Gabbard has enabled. I will not be silent. I will not yield my time. I will not apologize for one single vote I have cast in 40 years in this Congress. And I will not be intimidated by a woman who took money from Tucker Carlson and thinks that makes her qualified to sit in judgment of me. The American people will remember who was on the right side of history. It will not be you, Director Gabbard. And it will not be you, Mr. Chairman. The applause from the Democratic side of the dais was absent. Raja Krishnamurthy did not clap. Representative Seth Magaziner of Rhode Island did not clap. Representative Kathy Castor of Florida did not clap. Representative Haley Stevens of Michigan did not clap. None of her Democrats clapped. And then something happened that Nancy Pelosi did not see coming, that Raja Krishnamurthy did not see coming, that even Chairman Molinar had not planned for. Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan raised her hand. Elissa Slotkin was a Democrat. She had been elected to the United States Senate from the state of Michigan in November of 2024. Before she was a member of Congress, she had served for 8 years as a CIA officer, 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan. Before the CIA, she had served as an acting assistant secretary at the Department of Defense under both the George W. Bush and the Barack Obama administrations. She had been sitting in Canon 390 for 2 hours and 5 minutes. She had not spoken all morning. She was not a member of the Select Committee. She had been invited as a witness on a separate panel on intelligence oversight scheduled for the afternoon. She had voted against Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation. That vote was on the public record. She raised her hand. Chairman Molinar. The chair recognizes Senator Slotkin of Michigan for a point of personal privilege. Senator Slotkin stood up. She adjusted her microphone. She did not look at Nancy Pelosi. She looked at the C-SPAN camera, the camera that carried her words in that moment into approximately 93 million American living rooms. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am a Democrat. I was elected to the United States Senate from the state of Michigan in November of 2024. Before I was a member of Congress, I served for 8 years as a case officer with the Central Intelligence Agency. I did 3 tours in Iraq. Before that, I served under both the Bush and the Obama administrations at the Department of Defense, working on Iran, on ISIS, on the intelligence portfolio I am about to speak to. I have disagreed with Director Gabbard on many things. I voted against her confirmation in February of this year. I will continue to disagree with her on policy. And my vote against her confirmation is a matter of public record that I am not retreating from. But I am going to say something now on the record under the authority of this committee, because my silence would be dishonorable. Madam Speaker, I am a former case officer. I know what a Russian asset looks like. I have watched them for 8 years of my life. I have debriefed people who were trying to become them. I have written assessments of suspected foreign assets for 3 different presidents of the United States. Director Gabbard is not a Russian asset. Hillary Clinton was wrong in October of 2019. She was wrong to say it on a podcast. She was wrong to say it on the record. The intelligence community, which I was still formerly adjacent to at that time, privately corrected that record with key members of the Senate Intelligence Committee within 72 hours of her remarks, though that correction was never made public because the intelligence community does not issue public corrections of former presidential nominees. I did not come to this room today to defend Director Gabbard. I came to testify on a separate matter this afternoon, but I am not going to sit in this room and allow a former Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, under oath, on C-SPAN, in a public hearing of the United States Congress, to repeat an intelligence smear that I know as a former case officer to be false. Madam Speaker, with respect, you have the right to disagree with Director Gabbard on policy. You have the right to disagree with her on Syria, on Snowden, on any issue in the intelligence portfolio. You do not have the right to call her a Russian asset under oath on C-SPAN. It is not true. I know it is not true, and I am not going to be the Democrat who sits in this room and allows it to stand. I yield back. Mr. Chairman. Senator Slotkin sat down. Canon 390 was silent. Raja Krishnamurthy nodded slowly. Once, Josh Hawley, a Republican who had attacked Elissa Slotkin from the Senate floor on 17 separate occasions over the previous 2 years, leaned forward and said very quietly, loud enough only for the microphones nearest him to catch, "Thank you, Senator." Chairman Moulinar. The senator's statement is entered into the record. Nancy Pelosi stood frozen. Her mouth opened. She closed it. She opened it again. She could not attack Senator Slotkin. Slotkin was a Democrat. Slotkin was a former CIA officer. Slotkin had just stood up in a Republican committee hearing and told the truth about something Slotkin personally disagreed with. There was no counter to that. There had never been. Tulsi Gabbard leaned quietly into her microphone. Madam Speaker, Senator Slotkin did not vote for my confirmation. She has never defended me on any other matter. She has been on most days one of my harshest Democratic critics in the United States Senate. But she just told the truth. And that is the difference between us today. When Senator Slotkin sees a lie, she tells the truth even about someone she disagrees with. When you see a lie, Madam Speaker, you tell another lie. That is why you are sitting in that chair today under subpoena. And that is why you are going to leave this building this afternoon with fewer friends than you entered it with. A Democrat, a former CIA case officer, a United States Senator, just stood up in a Republican committee hearing and defended Tulsi Gabbard on the record, because the truth remains the truth. It was a defining moment when a politician finally put country over party, right there on C-SPAN, with the cameras rolling, setting the stage for a reckoning that Washington would never forget. Chairman Moulinar, Director Gabbard, you have 3 minutes remaining in your allotted time. Please proceed. Tulsi Gabbard, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will use them carefully. She turned slightly in her chair. She did not stand. A lieutenant colonel does not stand unless rank requires it. Mr. Chairman, in the 4th row, seat 9, is a man named Darren Hoover. Mr. Hoover is from Sandy, Utah. He has testified before this Congress in rooms very much like this one multiple times. He has spoken at the Republican National Convention. He has given interviews on every major network in the United States, from Fox News to MSNBC. I would like the American people to know why he is in this room today. Mr. Hoover's son, Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, was a United States Marine. He was one of 13 American service members who tragically lost their lives at Abbey Gate at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan, on August 26, 2021. He was 31 years old. He left behind a father, a mother, a sister, a brother, a community, and the United States Marine Corps. Mr. Hoover was invited here today by Congressman Neil Dunn, a retired combat surgeon and a member of this committee. Mr. Hoover is not a witness. He is an observer. He has not been asked to testify. He has not prepared remarks. With the chairman's permission, Mr. Hoover, would you simply stand so the American people can see your face? Darren Hoover stood up. He did not speak. He did not turn toward the cameras. He looked only at Tulsi Gabbard and then at Chairman Molinar. After 4 seconds, he sat back down. Tulsi continued, "Madam Speaker, I am not going to ask you to comment on Mr. Hoover's son. I am not going to put his name into a political argument. I am not going to do to him what you did to Mrs. Pelosi. I mention him for one reason only. In the last 105 minutes, Madam Speaker, you have used your time at this witness table to attack me personally for my trip to Damascus, for Snowden, for Clinton. You have attacked this chairman. You have attacked Senator Hawley. You have attacked Senator Slotkin, who just defended me against your own smear on the record as a fellow Democrat. As a former case officer, you have dismissed by name the sworn testimony of Mrs. Erica Pelosi. You have not answered a single question about your husband's $4 million profit on NVIDIA call options, purchased one days after you presided over the Chips and Science Act. You have not said the 7 words from your daughter's footage. You have not apologized to Mrs. Pelosi. You have not acknowledged Mr. Hoover's son, or the 12 other Americans who perished beside him, or the thousands of American and Afghan families who have lived with the consequences of the decisions made by members of this Congress since 2001. You have simply stood on this hearing, Madam Speaker, and you have done what you have done for 40 years. You have attacked, and you have deflected, and you have counted on the fact that the American people would eventually get bored, change the channel, and move on. They are not going to move on this time. Not this time. Tulsi Gabbard sat back. Her hands returned to her lap. She had used 2 minutes and 41 seconds of her 3 remaining minutes. Nancy Pelosi stood up, not to yield, to fight. Mr. Chairman, I will not. I will not be lectured on decency by a witch hunt. This entire hearing has been a partisan attack orchestrated from the White House, supported by a committee that has abandoned any pretense of fair process. Molinar gave once, Madam Speaker, you are out of order. I am not out of order. Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. This entire Republican Party is out of order. You are complicit in the greatest challenge to American democracy in the history of this republic. Molinar gave twice. Harder. Madam Speaker, you are out of order. You are not recognized. I have spent 40 years in this Congress. I have spent 40 years defending this building from the very forces you now serve. I will not be silenced by a man who has spent his entire career as a rubber stamp for. Molinar gave 3 times. The gavel cracked against the wooden base. Madam Speaker, the chair has ruled you out of order. You are excused as a witness. The chair is ending your time. Nancy Pelosi did not stop. I will not be excused. I have the right to be heard. I am a former Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Sighing, Chairman Molinar took a breath. His face did not change. He was not a dramatic man. His voice was barely raised above conversation. Madam Speaker, I am going to ask you to yield one more time. If you do not yield, I will ask the committee to move to a vote to suspend your testimony and close this panel. Pelosi, you will do no such thing. This committee, and then, quietly, deliberately, the way a Democrat leans into a microphone when he knows he is about to end a friendship, Raja Krishnamurthy spoke. Mr. Chairman, if it would assist the chair, the ranking member will second a motion to suspend the witness's testimony. Cannon Caucus Room 390 made a sound that was not a gasp. It was quieter than a gasp. It was the sound, if you have ever heard it, of an era ending. Nancy Pelosi turned her head slowly toward Raja Krishnamurthy, the Democrat she had endorsed for his ranking position 2 years ago. The Democrat whose career she had personally advanced, the Democrat she had campaigned for in his district 3 times, the Democrat whose primary challenger she had helped defeat in 2022. The Democrat who had put a framed photograph of himself with Nancy Pelosi on the wall of his Rayburn office, the Democrat who had been, for 9 years of his career, her Democrat. Raja Krishnamurthy did not look at her. He was looking at the dais, at Chairman Molinar, at the C-SPAN camera. I so move, Mr. Chairman. Nancy Pelosi stood perfectly still. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4. Her hands came down to the table. She did not pick up her papers. She did not look at her lawyer. She did not look at her chief of staff. She did not look at the press gallery. She did not look at Erica Caius. She did not look at Darren Hoover. She did not look at Tulsi Gabbard. She looked at Raja Krishnamurthy. Raja Krishnamurthy did not look back. Nancy Pelosi sat down. She did not sit angrily. She did not sit defiantly. She sat the way an 5-year-old woman sits when, for the first time in 40 years of American political life, she realizes that she is alone in a room full of people. She said very quietly enough, that the C-SPAN microphones almost did not catch it. I yield. Chairman Molinar tapped his gavel once, very gently. The witness yields. The committee will recess for 15 minutes. He set the gavel down. Nancy Pelosi did not move from the witness table during the recess. Her staff came to her. Her daughter Christine called her cell phone twice. She did not answer. Hakeem Jeffries, chief of staff, attempted to reach her through a Capitol Police liaison. She did not respond. A reporter from the Washington Post approached the witness table. A Capitol staffer blocked her path. When the committee returned 15 minutes later, the witness table was empty. Nancy Pelosi had left Cannon 390 alone. Through the side door that leads to Independence Avenue, without speaking to a single reporter in the hallway, without issuing a statement, without looking back at the room she had just walked out of. Chairman Molinar gave the afternoon panel to order as the session resumed. Senator Elissa Slotkin testified as scheduled on intelligence oversight reform for 72 minutes. Senator Josh Hawley asked her questions. She answered them. Nobody in that room mentioned Nancy Pelosi again. Did you just hear that? Raja Krishnamurthy, Pelosi's own party's ranking member, her own endorsement, her own ally of 9 years, moved to suspend her testimony, not Josh Hawley, not John Molinar, not the Republican Party, as her own Democrat seconded a motion to throw her out of a hearing she had just spent an hour and 45 minutes trying to dominate. If the nation had been waiting its entire adult life for a politician to finally be held accountable by their own party, not the other side, their own, take a close look at history unfolding right now, because this is only the beginning. Somewhere on the steps of the Cannon House office building, 41 minutes after the hearing recessed, Erica Caius walked alone out of the marble corridor and into the November afternoon. A reporter from the Washington Post approached her. He asked her one question. Mrs. Caius, what do you want Nancy Pelosi to know? Erica Caius stopped walking. She stood on the cannon steps and thought for 3 seconds. Then she said, "I want her to know that I am fine. I don't need her apology. I never did." She kept walking. She caught her Uber on Independence Avenue. She was in the air on a Southwest flight back to Fresno before Nancy Pelosi had left the building less. When she landed at Fresno Yosemite International Airport that evening, her daughter was waiting at the gate with a small bouquet of grocery store flowers. Erica Kias did not cry until they were in the car. Somewhere in Section 60 of Arlington National Cemetery that afternoon, Darren Hoover knelt beside the white marble headstone of Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, United States Marine Corps. He did not say his son's name out loud. He had stopped doing that 4 years ago on the advice of a chaplain who had understood that some prayers are better kept silent. He simply laid his hand on top of the stone. He left it there for 6 minutes. Then he stood up, brushed the grass off the knees of his suit pants, and walked back to his rental car. His wife was waiting at a Hilton in Alexandria. He was going to take her to dinner. He was going to order a steak. He was going to tell her that a director of National Intelligence had asked him to stand up in a room full of cameras and that he had stood. That was all he was going to say about it. Somewhere on the 4th floor of the Rayburn House office building that evening, Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy sat alone in his personal office. His Capitol cell phone had rung 7 times since the hearing had recessed. He had answered none of them. The only call he answered was from his wife Priya, who was watching the news in their kitchen in Schaumburg, Illinois, with their 3 children. She asked him one question. "Are you okay, Raja?" He said, "I did the right thing." She said, "I know you did." He hung up. He sat in his office for another 40 minutes. Then he drove home. Within 72 hours, the Pelosi Act had its 37th co-sponsor, including 3 new Democratic senators. Within a week, Senator Elissa Slotkin appeared on CBS Face the Nation and was asked by Margaret Brennan whether she regretted her statement in Canon 390. She said, quote, "Not for 1 second." She did not back down. Within a month, Paul Pelosi quietly liquidated his NVIDIA position and moved the proceeds into a blind trust. The Pelosi household's quarterly disclosures stopped appearing on Capital Trades.com for the first time in 19 years. The website's traffic paradoxically tripled. Because every American who had ever wondered why it existed had finally understood why. Nancy Pelosi completed her final term on January 3, 2027. She did not give a farewell speech on the House floor. She did not accept a congressional gold medal ceremony, though one had been offered. She did not publish the memoir she had reportedly been working on with a former Obama White House staffer. She left the Capitol on a Sunday morning through a side entrance on Independence Avenue, accompanied only by her husband Paul and 2 Capitol police officers. Neither of them had ever met. Raja Krishnamurthy was re-elected ranking member of the Select Committee on the CCP by a unanimous Democratic caucus vote in January of 2027. His Democratic primary challenger in June of 2026, a progressive attorney who had been personally endorsed by former Speaker Pelosi, received 11% of the vote. Krishnamurthy ran unopposed in the general election. Tulsi Gabbard served as Director of National Intelligence for the remainder of President Trump's second term. She released 3 sets of declassified historical intelligence records. She cut the ODNI budget by 52%. She did not comment publicly on Nancy Pelosi again. The Bhagavad Gita she had placed on the witness table in Canon 390 went back into the top right drawer of her desk in the old executive office building. It stayed there. If you made it this far, thank you. You are one of the Americans who still believes that in this country, when the truth is spoken calmly in a public room by people who have earned the right to speak it, accountability is still possible. Everything you heard today was on the public record. Not classified, not secret, not leaked. Paul Pelosi's Stock Act filings, the Chips and Science Act vote timeline, the Capital Trades disclosures, Erica Kia's September 2020 Fox News interview, Darren Hoover's public testimony, the HBO footage from Alexandra Pelosi, Hillary Clinton's October 2019 podcast remarks, Senator Alyssa Slotkin's public record on congressional stock trading. All of it. 5 minutes? A phone? Any American watching this video right now from anywhere in this country, reflect on what you just witnessed. This wasn't just a hearing. It was a tearing down of an untouchable facade. The working Americans, forgotten Americans, Americans who have spent 40 years watching the system, needed to hear what happened in Canon 390. Tonight, in a hearing room that nobody outside Washington had ever heard of, somebody finally showed us what accountability actually looks like. It is a stark reminder that truth waits its turn patiently for somebody brave enough to call it out. God bless Erica Kias in Fresno, California. God bless Darren Hoover in Sandy, Utah, and the families of the 13 fallen of Abbey Gate, whose names every American should speak out loud at least once in their lives. God bless Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan for telling the truth across party lines when her silence would have been the easier road. God bless Raja Krishnamurthy of Illinois, who did what almost no Democrat in the last 40 years has done. And God bless every American in every forgotten district of this country who has ever waited 4 decades for someone to finally say, under oath, on C-SPAN, in a public room with the cameras rolling, what we all already knew. The gavel fell, the era ended, and the reckoning, the real reckoning, starts. When the gavel finally falls on a lifetime of unyielding power, do we remember the heights of their political empire, or the profound silence of the exact moment they were held accountable? As the curtain closes on a career defined by calculated dominance, what does it say about the future of our democracy when the most powerful figures are finally brought down, not by their enemies, but by the undeniable weight of their own history?